A man who walks through the shadows, dressed not in armor of gold or steel, but in pain, discipline, and unshakable resolve. He is not a god, and yet he fights like one. He is not a monk, and yet he lives by a code that would make the ancients proud. Gotham calls him the Dark Knight, but tonight we ask a deeper question. Is Batman just a masked avenger, a broken child hiding behind violence? Or is he closer to a stoic sage, a philosopher of action who forged his soul in the fire of tragedy? Batman himself once declared, "It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me." That line could have been lifted directly from the notebooks of Marcus Aurelius or the teachings of Epictetus. But the question is this: does Batman truly embody Stoicism, or is he trapped in a prison of his own obsession? This is not just about Gotham, this is about us. Because every one of us has our own shadows, our own battles, our own scars that threaten to define us. And so tonight we will put Batman on trial. On one side, the defense will argue he is the living embodiment of Stoic virtue. On the other, the prosecution will expose his cracks, his flaws, his demons. And in the end, you will be the jury. Here at the Stoic Lighthouse, we believe ancient wisdom can light the path through modern chaos. If you seek clarity, if you want to sharpen your mind against life's confusion, you are in the right place. Take a moment now to like this video and subscribe, so this light can reach even more wanderers lost in the storm. Tonight, we will call witnesses not only from Gotham, but from across history. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, but also Chrysippus, who argued that true strength is found in logic and order, and even modern voices like Ryan Holiday, Jocko Willink, and William Birvine, who remind us that Stoicism is not dead philosophy, but a living practice. Together they will weigh in on the case of Bruce Wayne, so the stage is set, the courtroom is ready, the question remains. Is Batman a stoic philosopher in disguise, or is he merely a man chained forever to his past? The trial begins now. Number 1. The discipline of a god, building the inner citadel. From the ashes of tragedy, Bruce Wayne made a choice most men would never dare. He could have drowned in grief, he could have surrendered to bitterness. Instead, he declared war, not first on Gotham's criminals, but on himself. His body became a weapon, his mind a fortress. Years of relentless training across the globe forged something few humans ever achieve, a discipline that borders on the divine. This is not talent, this is ascesis, the ancient Stoic practice of rigorous training designed to construct what they called the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius described the citadel as a fortress of the soul, untouchable by the chaos outside its walls. Yet Batman doesn't just build a wall against chaos. He walks into it every night, carrying his fortress within him. He embodies what Epictetus once reminded his students: freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. Bruce Wayne eliminated the desire for comfort, for ease, even for a normal life. He chose a path of suffering, where every day he wages war on weakness. His enemies think his greatest power is wealth. But in truth, it is the same thing that made Epictetus free, even as a slave: his mastery of himself. Seneca once warned, "No man is fit to command others who has not first commanded himself." Batman understood this instinctively. Every punch he throws in the dark alleys of Gotham is built on countless unseen hours of training. Every plan he creates flows from a mind sharpened by study, patience, and restraint. His preparation echoes the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Just as Marcus Aurelius rehearsed in his mind the betrayals, illnesses, and losses he might face, Batman prepares for every possible catastrophe, every betrayal, even from his closest allies. Modern warriors echo this timeless truth. As Jocko Willink says, discipline is freedom. And William Birvine expands it further, reminding us that self-discipline is not self-denial, but self-liberation. For Batman, discipline is his armor, more resilient than Kevlar, more unbreakable than steel. It's what allows him to endure pain, to rise again when broken, to stay the course when the night seems endless. But here is the question, jury. Is this discipline the mark of a Stoic sage? Or is it the mask of a man who cannot rest? The defense argues he is proof that the Stoic way is alive in Gotham. The prosecution will tell us it is not wisdom, but obsession. Tonight, we must decide. Number 2, the obstacle is the way, turning pain into purpose. The story begins in an alley. A boy kneels beside the lifeless bodies of his parents, frozen by fear, consumed by grief. For most, that night would have been the end, a tragedy too heavy to bear. But for Bruce Wayne, that alley became the birthplace of the Dark Knight. What crushed so many could have crushed him too. Instead, it became the very fuel of his transformation. This is the essence of a Stoic truth that has echoed across centuries. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius recorded it in his Meditations. What impedes action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Batman took the weapon that broke his childhood and turned it into a symbol. He embraced the bat, the very creature he once feared, as his armor, his identity, his warning to the guilty. Pain did not shatter him. Pain became his teacher. The tragedy that could have left him paralyzed instead propelled him into purpose. This is not just Marcus Aurelius. Centuries before him, Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, began his philosophical journey after losing everything in a shipwreck. Shipwreck and alley, sailor and orphan, they share the same lesson. According to Zeno, the loss was not destruction, but transformation. And in our own time, Ryan Holiday gave these words a name modern ears could remember. The obstacle is the way. But long before Holiday, the Stoics practiced it as a daily truth. Donald Robertson reminds us that Marcus trained himself to see each obstacle not as a curse, but as a chance to exercise a specific virtue: patience, courage, justice, wisdom. Donald Robertson explained, every difficulty is an invitation to respond with virtue. For Batman, the alley was not just a wound, it was an invitation. His parents' death called him to justice. His fear of the bat called him to courage. Gotham's chaos called him to wisdom and discipline. He did not erase his pain. He did not run from it. He transformed it. Even the modern philosopher William Birvine speaks of amor fati, the love of one's fate, to not only accept the blows of destiny, but to embrace them as the raw material of greatness. Batman lives this out every night. He doesn't curse his past. He wields it. He honors it by turning poison into remedy, chaos into purpose. But here lies the question for our jury. Is this Stoic alchemy of pain the mark of wisdom, or is it still the wound of a child, disguised in the shape of a bat? The defense insists he is the living proof of Stoic resilience. The prosecution whispers that it is still trauma, not virtue, that drives him. Number 3, the Unbreakable Code, justice as the highest virtue. Among the shadows of Gotham, there is one line Bruce Wayne refuses to cross. No matter how twisted his enemies, no matter how many lives they have taken, Batman will not kill. Some see this as weakness, some call it hypocrisy, but through the lens of Stoicism, this code is not weakness, it is his greatest strength. It is the embodiment of justice, the highest of the Stoic virtues. For the Stoics, justice was never about revenge. It was about integrity. It was about serving the greater good while refusing to compromise one's own moral compass. Cicero, though not a Stoic himself, became one of their greatest allies when he declared, "The first duty of justice is to prevent harm to others unless provoked by injustice." Batman lives this truth, but he refuses to use injustice as a license for blood. To kill would make him no different than those he hunts, the Joker, the Scarecrow, the countless monsters of Gotham. Ending their lives would be easy, but once the line is crossed, he would no longer be the guardian of justice. He would become its violator. This echoes the words of Socrates, recorded by Plato. It is better to suffer injustice than to commit it. And in Batman's silence, we hear that choice. He chooses to suffer, to endure the endless return of his enemies, to feel the frustration of watching them escape again and again, rather than commit the injustice of killing. He understands that the real battle is not for Gotham's streets, it is for his own soul. Seneca warned that the true test of a man is whether he can live by principle, even when the world mocks him for it. Batman lives this test nightly. Gotham may call him a fool. His allies may beg him to end the cycle, but he will not, because he knows that if he kills, Gotham may lose one villain, but he will lose himself. Even modern voices echo this principle. According to Ryan Holiday, it is not enough to do the right thing when it's easy. Virtue is proved when it is hardest. And in Jocko Willink's language, discipline is not about power over others, but power over yourself. So here lies the paradox. Batman's greatest critics see his refusal to kill as irrational, yet through Stoic eyes, it is the ultimate rationality. The man who will not compromise his code, even when vengeance would be sweeter, proves that justice is not about convenience. It is about character. The defense presents this as undeniable proof of Stoic virtue. The prosecution, however, asks a haunting question. Is Batman truly acting from justice, or is this code just another chain he forged to hold back his own rage? Number 4. The shadow of vengeance. Rational justice or unleashed passion. The defense argues Batman's mission is noble, grounded in justice. But the prosecution asks, what if Gotham's Dark Knight is not driven by reason, but by rage? Why the bat? Why the shadows? Why fear as his weapon? These are not the tools of a philosopher. They are the choices of a man who never escaped the alley where his parents died. The Stoics warned of this danger. To them, the greatest enemy of reason was not fear, it was anger. Seneca devoted an entire work on anger to expose its poison. He cautioned, "No plague has cost the human race more than anger." And does Batman fight as a rational physician of justice, or does he fight as a boy still bleeding in the dark? His brutality, his intimidation, the way he breaks criminals not only with fists but with terror, this is not Apatheia, the calm freedom of the Stoic sage. It looks far more like pathos, the diseased passion that Stoicism sought to cure. Epictetus taught his students that a Stoic warrior should fight without hatred, like a doctor amputating a diseased limb, not with rage, but with necessity. And Donald Robertson expands this for the modern reader. A Stoic may fight an enemy, but he does so reluctantly and without malice. But watch Batman interrogate. Watch him leave criminals broken, gasping in alleys. Is this reluctance, or is this vengeance dressed as justice? The Joker, especially, exposes this weakness. Every time Batman spares him, every time he beats him nearly to death but not quite, we see the cycle repeat. What looks like control may in fact be the very opposite, a man enslaved by the ghost of one crime, projected onto every face he hunts. Chrysippus once argued that virtue must always be guided by reason, never by passion. If even one decision is born of uncontrolled emotion, the entire act ceases to be virtuous. By that measure, how many of Batman's knights are truly Stoic? And then there is Carl Jung, not a Stoic but a physician of the soul. He warned us with haunting clarity, what you resist persists. Batman resists his pain, his rage, his grief. He refuses to face them directly. Instead, he channels them into violence, into fear, into a mask. But like Jung predicted, the rage persists. It leaks into every punch, every growl, every chase, so the prosecution presses its case. Is Batman the surgeon Gotham needs, or is he simply a boy in a bat mask, weaponizing his trauma while pretending to be a philosopher? Number 5. Control or obsession? Violating the dichotomy. If there is one lesson Epictetus repeated above all others, it was this: peace comes from knowing what is in your control and surrendering what is not. The dichotomy of control is the cornerstone of Stoicism. Yet here, the prosecution sees Batman's greatest flaw. For Bruce Wayne does not surrender. He does not accept, he obsesses. His mission is not limited to mastering his own choices. He tries to master Gotham itself, every criminal, every politician, even his own allies in the Justice League. He creates contingency plans not just for his enemies, but for his closest friends. Superman, Wonder Woman, the very people who trust him with their lives. This is not acceptance of what lies beyond his reach. This is a pathological refusal to admit that some things cannot be controlled. Epictetus warned, "He is free who lives as he wishes to live. He is not free who is compelled by desire." Batman is compelled, not by greed, not by pleasure, but by the insatiable desire to control chaos. And what is the result? Isolation, paranoia, endless fatigue. He does not sleep because he cannot. Gotham is vast, unpredictable, uncontrollable. The very things Epictetus urged his students to let go of, Batman clings to with iron hands. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, a modern thinker echoing Stoic insights, speaks of the fragility born from trying to eliminate randomness. He warns, to try to control volatility is not only impossible, it is harmful. Batman embodies this harm. Each time Gotham births a new monster, the Joker, Bane, the Riddler, it is proof that his illusion of control is false. Yet instead of surrendering what lies beyond him, he doubles down. More gadgets, more surveillance, more walls. His Batcave becomes not just a command center, but a prison of his own making. Seneca once wrote that the wise man is never a slave, except to himself, if he misuses reason. Batman's enslavement is not to Gotham's criminals, but to the relentless belief that he alone can contain the uncontrollable. His discipline, once his strength becomes his chain. The defense would argue this is vigilance, preparedness, even wisdom. The prosecution sees it differently. This is not the serenity of Stoicism. This is obsession masquerading as order, and it leaves us with a chilling question. Does Batman's war on crime flow from reason or from his inability to accept the limits of human power? Number 6. The war against emotions, apatheia or destructive repression. To the untrained eye, Batman looks like the image of stoic calm. He shows no fear, no sorrow, no weakness. His enemies see only a mask of control, a man who moves through Gotham like a shadow, immune to feeling. But the question we must ask is this: is Batman practicing apatheia, the stoic freedom from destructive passions, or is he simply repressing emotions he refuses to face? Chrysippus taught that apatheia was not about erasing emotion. The Stoic sage still feels joy, caution, goodwill. What he rejects are irrational passions born of false judgments, rage, despair, crippling fear. To the Stoics, the wise man is not a stone. He is a human being who experiences emotion through the lens of reason. But look at Bruce Wayne, his silence at Wayne Manor, his distance from those who love him, his inability to connect even with Alfred, the one man who knows his soul. Does this look like a man at peace, or like a man at war with himself? Carl Jung, though no Stoic, diagnosed this pattern with precision. What you resist, persists. Batman resists grief. He resists vulnerability. He resists the child who never left that alley. But those shadows have not vanished. They persist. They bleed into his fists, his interrogations, his sleepless nights. He hides them beneath armor, beneath technology, beneath the mask. But a mask does not heal. It only covers. Seneca warned his students not to deny their inner turmoil, but to study it, to confront it. He wrote, "No man is healed against his will." Batman does not seek healing. He seeks control. He does not govern his emotions with reason. He cages them. And the problem with cages is that what lives inside will eventually break free. Modern voices echo this truth. William Birvine reminds us that the Stoic path is not a life of emotional suppression, but of emotional mastery. To feel deeply, yet remain free. Batman, by contrast, seems less a master and more a prisoner, chained to the very emotions he pretends to have conquered. So the prosecution presents its case. What we see in Gotham's protector is not apatheia, but repression. Not serenity, but dissociation. He split Bruce Wayne from Batman, as though the man and the mask could live apart. But the Stoics taught integration, not fragmentation. The sage is whole. The broken man hides behind a shadow. And so we ask, is Batman a philosopher in armor, or just a soul too afraid to face his own reflection? Number 7. The final verdict, a Stoic in training or the keeper of the flame. The evidence has been laid before us. On one side, the defense, a man of relentless discipline, who transformed pain into purpose, who clings to a moral code so unshakable it could have been carved into stone by Marcus Aurelius himself. On the other, the prosecution, a man haunted by vengeance, obsessed with control, repressing wounds he refuses to heal. So what is the verdict? Is Batman a Stoic sage, or just a broken child in a mask? The truth is more complex. Batman is no Stoic sage, sitting serenely at the mountaintop, bathed in calm acceptance. He has not reached ataraxia. His storm still rages, and yet he is not the opposite either. He is not an enemy of Stoicism. He is its struggler, its apprentice, its imperfect champion. Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily to remember that philosophy was not about perfection, but practice. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Batman lives this creed. He does not preach virtue. He practices it, clumsily, painfully, imperfectly, but with relentless persistence. His virtue is not in having conquered his demons, but in never abandoning the fight against them. Think of him as the keeper of a lighthouse in an endless storm. The waves of chaos crash endlessly against him. Joker, crime, corruption, his own inner shadows. He will never calm the storm. He will never bring Gotham perfect peace. Yet every night he climbs the tower. Every night he keeps the light burning. That light is justice, that light is discipline, that light is the refusal to surrender. Albert Camus, though not a Stoic, captured this truth in his retelling of Sisyphus. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Batman's heart is filled not with serenity, but with struggle, and perhaps that is why he inspires us more than any sage ever could. Because we are not sages either. We are wounded. We are imperfect. We are caught in storms of our own making, and like Batman, we may never find peace, but we can choose every day to keep our own light burning. So here is the verdict. Batman is not the Stoic who conquered himself once and for all. He is the Stoic in training, the eternal apprentice of virtue, the keeper of a flame in the darkest night. And that may be the most powerful lesson of all, that philosophy is not a destination, but a battle fought daily, scar by scar, choice by choice. The trial is done. The shadows of Gotham have spoken, and the truth, Batman is not the flawless Stoic sage resting in serene calm. He is something else, something more human. He is the struggler, the imperfect warrior, the keeper of a light that refuses to die, even in the storm. This is why his story matters to us, because Stoicism is not about reaching perfection, it is about persistence. It is about waking up each day, ready to fight your battles, even when you are tired, even when you are wounded, even when the storm feels endless. Like Batman, we may never silence every fear or heal every scar, but we can choose to turn them into purpose. We can use our pain as fuel. We can keep our light burning, no matter how dark the night becomes. Now it is your turn. What's your verdict? Do you see Batman as a Stoic in practice, or as a man still chained to the ghosts of his past? Share your thoughts below. Every comment adds depth to this community. Every perspective lights another flame. If this journey through philosophy and Gotham gave you clarity, keep that flame alive. Like this video, subscribe to the Stoic Lighthouse, and share it with someone fighting their own silent battles. Together, we keep wisdom alive in a world drowning in noise. And prepare for our next exploration, where we will uncover the hidden Stoic lessons inside one of the most powerful figures of modern myth. A story of rage, fate, and redemption. A story that carries a lesson capable of changing the way you face your own destiny. Stay tuned. We end with the timeless words of Marcus Aurelius: "The greatest victory is to conquer yourself." Until next time, guard your citadel and keep the flame alive. See you in the next video.